entire range across appliances, furniture and bedding. Then fill out a simple application and you could get approval from just 15 minutes later. It's that easy. And with interest-free finance terms ranging from 18 months to up to 3 years, we'll have a repayment schedule that suits you. Apply online or visit your local Harvey Norman today. What would you get?
Terms and conditions apply, subject to assessment. Finance provided by Creation Consumer Finance Limited and Flexify Europe Limited. For full terms and conditions, visit harveynorman.ie/finance.
At Centra, we have great offers in store, like Fairy Non-Bio Powder 40 wash only €7, Cadbury Selected 4 and 5 packs and Block Bar Selected Range 80 to 160 gram, any 3 for €3. And our mega deal until Sunday, Campo Viejo Tempranillo or Faustino 7 wine, only €8 each. Centra, live every day. Enjoy cost sensibly.
You've got your concentration face on.
I'm Googling for easy to brand, multiple corporate gifts and goodie bags.
Only 973 million options on your shortlist. Maybe there's a better way. Hello, is that Snap?
Looking for promotional products? Whether it's branded gifts, merchandise or clothing, we'll give you the best ideas, then manage and deliver for any budget, audience or event. Let your search start and end at Snap.
You say promo, design, signage, display, digital, print. We say easy. Snap.ie.
Enjoy an unforgettable break with Air Arabia. Relax on beautiful sandy beaches. Enjoy exciting water sports. Play on spectacular golf courses and much more. Book today direct flights from Dublin to Agadir starting from €135 return, including taxes. Visit airarabia.com.
You ain't shit! I wish I was 50 years younger and I'd kick your ass.
Well, fans can be the harshest critics, you know.
And they often are.
A wife is often the harshest critic of her husband.
I thought I was invincible. That's what you're trained to believe as a sports person.
There was 4 million people in Ireland who knew much more about managing football teams than I did. When it comes to music, I can spoof with the best.
Your sporting career is the best time you'll have, and you know you have to hang on to it for as long as you like, because everything else is pretty crappy.
And this is not lies. Stephen Rothschild has never spoken to Jimmy McGuinness in his life.
Welcome along to our Saturday panel. So it is the opening weekend of the Rugby World Cup. What a morning it has been, and then it's all building up to Ireland against Scotland tomorrow. I'm joined in studio by rugby writer Ciarán Raghallaigh, by former Connacht player Michael Swift, and another sometime former Connacht man, Andy Dunne. How are we?
Very well.
It's finally arrived. How much of a Finn Russell loving are we going to have over the next hour?
Oh, you'll get at least 5 minutes from me on Finn Russell, yeah.
So if you are just waking up around about now and you somehow missed what's happened this morning, it started bright and early. 5:15 was it for Australia against Fiji?
It was. I have a 5-month-old baby girl, so it was an easy.
So you
easy
volunteered.
Exactly.
So you were up at 5:15.
Absolutely was, yeah.
So the story of the game was Australia ran in 4 second half tries. They were down, almost heading for the hour mark, and turned it on in the final 20 minutes and ran out pretty convincing winners in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it kind of, on paper, you know, you always talk about Fiji being unstructured and Australia kind of countering that with the kind of set-piece dominance, and it kind of went against script in the first kind of 50 minutes. And Fiji kind of scored a couple of really good tries. And then I think that the big talking point at the time, the best player on the pitch was the number 7 Yato for Fiji. Made another barnstorming break, and Hodge with a kind of shoulder charge tackle.
No arms,
yeah. And it was a strange one. He was kind of coming off his kind of right and ended up tackling with his, well, not even a tackle, with his left arm to the head. And all this talk of world rugby, there wasn't even a sanction in place at all. And Yato went off and never actually returned from his HIA. And on paper, that was probably one of the big turning points of the game.
So there's been quite a bit of controversy about a lot of the refereeing, between how lax they were on the offside, and just an awful lot was let go. But an incident like this, on the opening couple of days, where we've heard for literally the last 2 or 3 years about the importance of the tackle and the where you should be tackling, and you have an incident like this where it should have been a penalty try and a red card. I think he's about to go in over the try line. Yeah,
there's potential for a penalty try, but I think definitely minimum yellow card, and in all, you know, probably should have been a red card. And you're right, you know, it's a flagship tournament. It only comes around once every 4 years. The amount of publicity about player wellness and safety, and yet something like this happens in the day 2 of the tournament, and not even a go upstairs to the TMO. And yet I found in the 3 games, the TMO seemed to be coming in a lot especially for knock-ons and little things, and yet for something so important as this, to really make a stance on safety for the tournament, it was just a very strange kind of course of events.
It does feel like it was the turning point in the game, even though Fiji continued to lead. So they were, 11-9 up at that stage? And as you mentioned, they lose a crucial player as well in that the TMO doesn't get involved. Like, that ruins Fiji's tournament potentially, that one decision.
No, absolutely. And on the back of that, you just saw that Australians, if they would have been down to 14 players for the rest of the game, then it could have been a far different story, and Fiji would have fed off that. But as it turns out, the Australians, Hodge remained on the pitch. I think he was actually probably a bit annoyed. He'd literally been tackled. I think two of the Fijian wingers ran all over him in the first 30 minutes. He was trying to prove a point, but a really badly missed tackle, and it should have been a red.
Well, the interesting thing about having social media as well is you can get the replays quite quick. And it seems like a lot of people didn't notice it in real time, but it came up on Twitter that it did, and you had Ross Tucker, who from this parish. He actually jumped on Twitter and went through the way they work out the matrix of decision 1, decision 2. Is it, is there any mitigation? Is it high? And he just marked it out how he would have gone through the principles, and he said red card directly. So he's the guy who's been involved in this whole study all the way through, and you could watch him 15 minutes after it's actually happened, and he says it's red, and you question it hasn't even gone upstairs. I'd love to see Australia playing 14 against Fiji, or Fiji playing against Australia with 14, because the spaces they were creating and the amount of hugely powerful players they have, it would have been a hell of a different game. And then unfortunately they got a yellow card, and there's been a lot of talk about how many points you can get out of a 10. It's in bin these days. And they got 2 tries, didn't they, in about 5 or 6 minutes, and that was game over. So very, very harsh on Fiji.
You need very strong refereeing, because there used to be tip tackles in rugby, and then it was eradicated overnight when Sam Warburton got sent off in a World Cup quarter-final, because Alan Rowland had the balls to make a decision that at the time, sent shockwaves around rugby. And it was eradicated overnight because it was the sense of occasion that took place, the importance of the match and the importance of the player on the field. He wasn't intimidated by Warburton's professional history, and refs have, McCaw got away with murder in his 15-year career because of who he was. So Rowland did rugby a huge service that day, and I do think rugby is crying out for a guy to make a big call on the biggest stage in order to eradicate it, because it's dangerous.
Just on the TMOs, a couple of the games today, Argentina, France, it was almost a sense of when a replay was shown on the big screen in the stadium, you could hear the gaffes or a knock on, or potentially, and then all of a sudden it cut to the referee and he goes, oh, okay, and then he kind of goes to the TMO. So they were using it, but not for the big decisions. It seems.
Because the way you're talking about it, watching it live, maybe from the referee's angle, it didn't look that bad.
It was on
but
the far
there
side.
is a fail-safe there.
Exactly.
And is that at a big tournament like this? Maybe the relationship between the TMO and the referee is slightly different. We're not hearing the TMO.
Well, we were just talking about that. No, Air Sports you weren't, but on ITV apparently.
Yeah, okay. Some of them, it's. But just like the teams, having this 3-month preparation into the tournaments, the referees have had their hardest 3 months of a 4-year cycle. They have to be seen, as well as being physically fit, they have to be mentally sharp for all decisions, and they would have gone through all the protocols and gone through it until they were kind of sick of it, because this is the biggest tournament of rugby, and for it just seems strange after 2 days we're already talking about a potentially game-changing incident and allowing a tier 2 team to maybe
just about to say that it's even more unfortunate. If it went the other way, we'd be looking at it slightly differently, but people are going, oh God, the tier 2 are just getting hammered again first game in, and how difficult the tournament is for them as it stands. How many Fijians have we seen today, by the way?
15, I'd say.
I saw somebody put up a great one.
Not playing for Fiji.
I saw that.
Someone had a great one saying the Australian Fijians are beating the Fijian Fijians. And you look at them and you see how harshly they were done there. I mean, there's no doubt about that tackle. I mean,
maybe the refs
clear as day.
Maybe the referees had a tough pre-season and they're going to peak later on in the tournament.
Periodisation.
These are only the pool stages. They're saving their best stuff for later. We heard from Michael Cheika earlier, who seemed, they got the win and he was satisfied. From what you saw of where Australia are right now and where teams are trying to peak, was that a bit of rustiness that saw them start that game slowly, or would you have some worries about where Australia are?
I would have some concerns, especially around the defensive side. I mean, for Fiji's first try, they went through a couple of phases and they had a couple of pullback passes, but the actual quality of the pass wasn't great. It was going behind the catcher, and it happened on 2 occasions, and yet they still kind of got outside the outside channel of the Australian defence, and obviously then Tuisova ran out over a Hodge, and that was the line break. But what Cheika will be happy with is that they were kind of reverted against type really from Australian team and kind of went back to basics and got a couple of tries using the rolling maul from the line out and kind of kept it tight. The likes of Michael Hooper running great lines and Pocock at 6. So I think he'd be happy with that. But as I said, it would have been really interesting to have seen if they'd have played with 14 men, what the score would have been.
What are your expectations out of Australia in the tournament?
Well, they knocked up 47 points against the All Blacks a few weeks ago. So they seem to be
14 men again.
Yeah, but they seem to be very. There's no one focusing on them. Everyone's, justifiably looking at South Africa, England, New Zealand, and then behind that Ireland, Wales, maybe. You see, the French had a good half, but there's been today they had a good first half at least, but there's not been much hype around the Aussies, which I'm sure Cheika will be delighted about. I could see them. Yeah, it's an that group of death. Who's going to come out? But my expectations, I don't know. I'd say maybe I wouldn't be surprised if they got to a semis and were knocked out.
So the second game, you managed to drag yourself up for this?
I did. There was no chance I was getting up for Australia.
So France held off a second half comeback by Argentina. France were leading 20 points to 3 at half time. Argentina came back to lead 21-20 until Camilo Lopez drop goal put France ahead. Argentina still had an opportunity to win it, a long range penalty right at the very end. Emiliano Buffelli just narrowly wide. He had the distance. A bit of a scrap at the end of the game as well. This was, in some ways, I felt a bit of a carbon copy of that Six Nations opener between France and Wales, where France just blew Wales away in the first half and then capitulated in the second. This time we sort of felt at half time, surely they've learnt their lesson. No. What happened? How was there such a flip?
Well, that's the great French stereotype. I don't think anybody knows. I don't think their management knows. I thought they got their selections right going into the game. They've taken on Fabien Galtier and Laurent Leby into their coaching team, which you could see written all over the style of their play.
So Galtier is essentially running the show.
Absolutely. I'm unless I'm misinformed, but he's had a brilliant record as a coach, and his teams play with quite a discernible style, and the French side looked like that French of old. All those stereotypical quotes were coming out about French flair and joie de vivre and various other cliches, but they were brilliant to watch, and they were passing out of the tackle, which is a common thread in the best attacking teams across the World Cup. But to answer what went wrong at half time, who knows?
You could see Ledesma during the first half, literally just tearing he has no hair left, but just going absolutely nuts at some of the decisions by the Argentinians, and obviously they got a telling off at half time and came out all guns firing. But I think that the French, they've unearthed a couple of real talents in Dupont and Pinot and in Tanak, all the names that are pretty synonymous with French rugby in yesteryear. But once again, as I said, they reverted back to type. All of a sudden, they were making some silly offload errors, maybe throwing the ball that shouldn't have gone to hand in the first half, and got found out by an Argentinian team that were really fired up and probably on paper should have won the game. They had an easy walk-in try when they had a penalty advantage, and all it would have taken, I forget who the player was, but just pass it over the top, and I think the number 8 was on the wing unmarked and would have been a walk-in.
Well, I tell you what I did think was a bit of a shift for the French was the pragmatism in their management off the field. When it went awry, and which was so obvious, they brought in Camilo Lopez, they brought in Maxime Machineau, and they brought on Picamol, all who've got a lot of experience. And they were pragmatic and said, right, let's choke the game out. They got lucky. Lopez got a great drop goal, and then they got away with it with that arguably the stupidest penalty I've seen given in recent history by Fickley. I mean, moronic, wouldn't do it justice in the last minute of a crucial World Cup qualifier. But the management off the field again were they reacted to the complete change in performance levels. At least they did that. So again, that was a plus for their management side.
It leaves Argentina in a position where they need to beat England or they're going out of the tournament. From a French point of view and what they can achieve, probably not enough to get to a final, but enough to stun somebody along the way.
Who knows? I mean, nobody would have thought in 2011 they were going to get to a final and they should have beaten New Zealand. They were robbed. So you just, it's impossible to predict with the French.
The game obviously then that had most relevance from an Irish point of view was the game of the pool stages, and it lived up to the hype. New Zealand 23, South Africa 13. The opening 20-minute block, firstly, of when South Africa were dominant, New Zealand couldn't get out of their own half. It's rare you've seen an All Black side put on the back foot like that. South Africa didn't really get the opportunities on the scoreboard. They hit the post with Pollard, which maybe turns out to be a bit of a turning point because it was such a kickable penalty. And then the All Blacks, out of nothing, come to life, score 2 tries in the space of 5 minutes. And as South Africa try their best in the second half to come back, they always just had them at arm's length. Firstly, the opening 20 minutes, like that South African performance, was that them literally emptying the tank in that first 20 minutes and there was nothing left?
Well, I was going to say, there's no way you can play for 80 minutes of intensity of attacking every breakdown. I mean, the Bermuda, they were all just flying in every possible moment. The pressure on the 9 and 10 on every kick. And also their attack as well, though. I suppose it is tiring to be doing that, but in their attack they were quite kind of energy saving in that they were very much kind of going in the middle of the pier field, going to the right, coming back and playing quite kind of simple rugby, almost reverting back to a South African of, look, we're going to beat you up front and we're going to run through you, which I think those days of attacking rugby have passed. But then the All Blacks just soak it up like a fantastic heavyweight boxer, just soak it all in, and all of a sudden, when the moment opportunity arose, Severis got the ball, a couple of offloads later, and they were down, and all of a sudden from being not in control of the game but having a big footprint in the game, South Africans found themselves 14 points down.
I think we saw the best of both sides in about a half an hour period. Or the things that Ireland would be most fearful of. So we saw the dominance of the box, just that brute force physicality. And I mean, once or twice you see the All Blacks, just off 9, and there's 2 or 3 passes and the pressures, like each time, and even those guys will make a mistake under that pressure. And that's what you look at Ireland and you go, how could we deal with that kind of... We didn't do it against England, didn't do it against Wales. So that's what we'd be most fearful of there. But in my head, I've always still thought New Zealand would be harder for us to beat in a World Cup. We'd have enough to maybe get past South Africa on a day. But when you see what the All Blacks can do in, was it 4 minutes? To just flick that switch and make the most of an opportunity. Like South Africa had a few opportunities that they didn't close down, they didn't take advantage of. Colby made a couple of amazing breaks, but they didn't, apart from Steph Dutoit's try, they didn't make the ruthless finish that the All Blacks did. And what we've seen there from the All Blacks is the one that I'd be more fearful. I'd be more fearful of them doing that to Ireland in the quarter-final than South Africa.
Well, I think what won't be lost on any of the teams that are going to analyse the All Blacks is that first 20 minutes from the Springboks. And you mentioned the Handré Pollard missed penalty. To me, it wasn't the fact he hit the post was the turning point. It was the fact that the Garces played advantage before he gave that penalty. And the advantage was the South Africans tackled Mo'unga over the try line, and they demolished their scrum for the first 18 minutes. And to have a scrum on the 5-yard line is playing advantage. And he completely ignored the fact. So if you're going to play for advantage and not award them a 5-metre scrum when they've demolished the New Zealand scrum for 17, 18 minutes, that's, again, you would say the ref is... Maybe he's going to peak later on in the tournament. But that is a massive turning point, because a 3-0 up and a really creaking New Zealand scrum, a scrum that hasn't selected Owen Franks, a scrum that was targeted then is going to be under pressure, and South Africa have made it really vulnerable. They should have had a scrum on the 5-yard line, and I reckon they would have got damn close to a penalty try. Could have been a 10-0 7-point swing, and okay, Pollard misses the kick, but it should never have been a penalty in the first place. I wonder would it have been a very different game with an All Black scrum having, you know, conceded a penalty try at that stage. They mightn't have come back into it as brilliantly as they did in their defence, but I don't know if they'd have come back from the 10-0.
Well, that's what I was wondering. In that 20-minute spell, did you sense that the All Blacks were about to crack at any stage?
Yeah, I absolutely did, and I think that's what I'm saying, won't be lost. And they've, for whatever reason, the All Blacks are always ahead of the curve in terms of trends, and they seem to be, you know, we're going to go into this World Cup slightly ahead of the curve on everyone else, and everyone spends their time catching up. But they have seemed to have abandoned the policy of having a very strong scrum. They have a very strong scrum coach in Mike Cron, but compared to the South African scrum, the English scrum, the Welsh scrum, the Irish scrum, they're nowhere near it in their front five. So, you know, if we end up playing New Zealand in the quarter final, there maybe that's your John Klein selection, because he's picked a scrummaging lock to go after them and make them creak, you know. So there's no way these coaches are going to be looking at that 80 minutes and saying, okay, the All Blacks are fearsome, we know that, but they definitely have a weak point.
Have we found out why he's brought Klein now? So it's New Zealand in the quarter final.
He knew South Africa were going to.
He spent months talking about South Africa. Yeah, but it's the All Blacks, perhaps.
Maybe so.
Would you go along with that, Michael? Say if that scenario had played out and they'd managed to build up that 10-minute lead, that South Africa were able to maintain that momentum for a little bit longer?
Yeah, I think so. And as I said, it was a strange decision because they had that 5 metre and it wasn't even questioned at all, which was strange.
But the South Africans was really
it was okay. We'll take it. But no, absolutely. And I think, as I said, the South African game plan was fairly conservative. And as I said, you can go 80 minutes quite comfortably playing that type of game plan. But as I said, in defence, you know, it was phenomenal piece of work for those first 30 minutes. Guys flying into the breakdown and really just harrowing and just hustling the New Zealand out half pairing.
Even Kobe throws himself around like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
It's like the little fella
made a rubber, isn't he? Yeah.
Every time he gets the ball, you can just hear the crowd just whoa.
Did you see his break towards the end in the second half?
Yeah.
I mean, he went past 20 people, got down, but he actually jumped up and did a flying tackle. And they were counter-attacking and stopped him as well. Like, the guy's unbelievable.
He's like a cartoon character.
Yeah. Although Leinster, if you go back, I spent a bit of time building them up in the game against Toulouse last year between Leinster and Toulouse, and he didn't really get much until late on in the RDS. So you can shut him down as well. He's not that untouchable. But yet this morning, today, whatever time it was, he was incredible to watch. And you'd like to see more South Africa be able to do more. I mean, I think what Jacques Nienaber has done coming in. I mean, we watched Munster when Rassie and him came in, and they flipped things quick, double quick, like. And I've never heard players praise a coach so much as Jacques.
Yeah.
You know, everyone you've spoken to from Munster, especially the forwards, maybe, will say this guy was just the best I've ever worked under. And you can see like what he's done with them. Like, I think people are talking about this being the most open tournament, and I don't know if we've learned a lot more today, but I think I've seen it as the most fragile tournament, as in, you know, normally you'll have one or two that are up here, and now I think what happened is they've come down a bit, because like South Africa aren't the finished article, and New Zealand clearly are a bit fragile as well. Australia, as you said there, the kind of off radar, they're not under it, like they're off it, even though they've beaten New Zealand. And I think England have gone up, but they lost to
let's keep building England up, though. Can we just keep
no, I have done as well, but they lost to Wales and they drew with Scotland. I mean, normally in any other World Cup year you wouldn't be. It's just such a bizarre tournament, and I think it's only after about 3 or 4 weeks we'll have any idea. Really.
Do you think any other nation would have been able to keep South Africa to 3 points after that 20-minute burst?
Michael,
yeah, you know, it's
like if they hit, say it ends up in Ireland, South Africa in the quarter-final, and they hit Ireland with that sort of intensity,
Ireland would potentially, and that's just an issue with Ireland, is the physical nature of the pack sometimes in the back five.
Might kick it a bit more,
but possibly I was thinking that the South African game plan of being so direct might have been specifically targeted for that New Zealand game. We don't know their kind of thought process, because I can't see them doing that in every game in this tournament. Maybe they saw that's how to try and stifle the New Zealand attack. It's almost this basketball blanket defence of just like hustle at every possible moment to try and make these like world-class athletes make decisions under pressure that they're not normally accustomed to. Only time will tell.
Yeah, most teams who would, I suppose, be on the receiving end of that onslaught, maybe most teams could hold out similar to New Zealand for 20 minutes and be 3-0, but most teams would then have cracked over the next 20 minutes and
couldn't respond and dominate the next 20.
Then. Yeah, but the way New Zealand were able to flip it was phenomenal, and they did it through skill level as well. It wasn't just broken field, happenstance. You know, a guy gets like Sevu Roos beats a few defenders. They did it by they started to deconstruct the South Africa rush defence. They didn't throw long wide passes. They got the ball into midfield, which divides the South African defence in two immediately. It's very hard to rush up when there's a ruck in midfield. It's very easy to rush up when the ruck or the breakdown's on the extremity, because you've a line of 12, 13 men and they all follow up leading from the outside in. But when the All Blacks brought the ball into midfield and they put Mo'unga on one side, Barrett on the other, they started to use chip kicks. They started to use Aaron Smith's kicking more, and they started to just obviously pass a bit more out of the tackle. But
do you think the All Blacks players are working that out themselves?
Yeah, I think they're aware. There's probably, at that level, you would hope most top level teams are aware if a rush defence, and they probably knew well there was a rush defence coming on. There are ways to beat a rush defence, and you put doubt in that defence by kicking in behind them, not by just playing at them and hopefully you can go around them, you or go through them. You can't outflank it. You've got to just kick over it or run through it with the spaces in between it. You can't really go around it ball in hand. So
do you think the fact that New Zealand have these two excellent first receivers in Mo'unga and in Barrett, and there seems to be a global trend now, England with Ford and Farrell as well in the pocket, do you think that helps as well on a pitch when you are coming against these blitz defenders, where you've got guys who are comfortable in being the first receiver?
Massively. Yeah. It's a huge bonus against those rush defences, and I would hope we could facilitate that at some stage in the tournament, maybe with Carberry playing at fullback as well as Sexton, but which could well happen, you know.
Well, you saw that from the first try, didn't you? Yeah. Barrett took that ball in space and then he backed himself. They thought he was going to go out wide, but he just acceleration, and it looked exactly like Joey.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, people are talking about whether this will work, whether they'll stick with the 10-15 this way for the whole tournament. Yeah. But I think today you saw the magic of it.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
All right, so that's today's World Cup. Tomorrow is all about Ireland against Scotland. We'll take a quick break and then we'll look ahead to the game.
The Saturday panel on Off the Ball.
Hello, I'm Janet. When my GP diagnosed me with plantar fasciitis, she recommended I visit Foot Solutions for an analysis. The team at Foot Solutions were great. They listened and explained everything to me. I was fascinated with the technology and what it could tell about my feet. After just a week wearing my new custom arch supports, I was finally living without pain and going back to an active lifestyle. I only wish I'd visited Foot Solutions sooner.
For active feet without the pain, drop into Foot Solutions or visit footsolutions.ie.
Listen up, class. Aldi's Play Rugby sticker promotion is back. Collect official Irish rugby stickers every time you spend €30 in Aldi. Fill your primary school's poster for a chance to win one of 2 €50,000 prizes or one of 10 €10,000 prizes for your school's playing facilities. Tomorrow, Japanese for beginners. Konnichiwa, kids.
Konnichiwa, sir.
Aldi, official supermarket of the IRFU. Full details at aldi.ie/playrugby. Promotion runs 10th of August to the 8th of November 2019.
Looking for a top-quality Irish-made mattress that doesn't cost the earth? With dedicated sleep experts to help you find the best mattress for you. And free delivery on a huge range of mattresses. Well, for this weekend only, get to the Harvey Norman 4-day mattress sale with up to half price off across our entire range. So for the best deals and lower prices, the Harvey Norman mattress 4-day sale is now on. But hurry, must end Sunday. Snooze or lose.
Go, Harvey, go! Enjoy an unforgettable break with Air Arabia. Relax on beautiful sandy beaches. Enjoy exciting water sports. Play on spectacular golf courses and much more. Book today direct flights from Dublin to Agadir starting from €135 return, including taxes. Visit airarabia.com.
Start your story with unmissable savings this week at Woodie's. Savings like Triton T90 SR electric shower, now €229. All Dulux interior coloured emulsion, 25% off. And all flat pack furniture and bar stools, now half price. Woodie's, we're all homemakers. T's and C's and exclusions apply.
Be confident in the next car you buy. At Done Deal, you can find cars from over 1,000 trusted dealerships nationwide. Now you can search for cars with warranties and monthly finance options to meet your budget. Done Deal, Ireland's largest car showroom in the palm of your hand.
Since 1927, ESB has been working towards a brighter future for all. Today, that means finding new ways to use clean electricity in our everyday lives. And because electric vehicles are 3 times more efficient and improve the quality of the air we breathe, it's definitely worth thinking about. Be part of a brighter future. Find out more at esb.ie.
This Irish success story is brought to you by Guaranteed Irish.
Did you know that Black Knight is the leading Irish-owned web hosting company with 84,000 customers in 130 countries? Based in Carlow, Black Knight employs 48 people, providing domain names, email and web hosting using the latest technology and responsive customer support. Guaranteed Irish welcomes companies that are altogether better choices for our communities. So look out for it. GuaranteedIrish.ie. Altogether better.
Bruce Betting, one of Ireland's leading bookmakers. With best odds guaranteed on UK and Irish horse racing, Bruce Betting has you covered. And with the Bruce Betting app, we're always giving you more. T's and C's apply. Bruce Betting, in-store, online and now on your phone. Over 18s, please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Mullen Lighting have had more than their fair share of lightbulb moments. And as manufacturers of bespoke lighting, the decision to move into the Eurozone was one of their most important. As was partnering with Enterprise Ireland. A comprehensive 5-step plan and extensive supports helped make France one of their most successful markets. As Brexit approaches, take the step into new markets with Enterprise Ireland. Visit globalambition.ie/steps. If you have the ambition, we'll help you take it global. An initiative of the Government of Ireland.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an evening of stand-up comedy.
For the first time in 15 years, Ben Elton returns to stand-up comedy.
Put your hands together for me, Ben Elton.
The Olympia Theatre this Friday, September 27th.
Olympic beach volleyball. What's coming next, eh? Sandcastle building?
Tickets from $34.50 on sale now. Additional charges may apply.
So you can run fast. So what? There's no bus. What's the
Ben
point?
Elton, live at the Olympia Theatre this Friday.
Across Ireland on 106 to 108 FM and at newstalk.com. This is Newstalk.
It's 2 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Adrian Harman. Lightning strikes have left thousands of homes and businesses in the southeast without power this afternoon. Met Éireann's issued a status yellow warning for thunder for Waterford, Leinster and Monaghan. The ESB says it will take 2 to 3 hours to restore power supplies. Alan O'Reilly from the Carlow Weather Channel says the storms are localised but quite powerful.
Severe thunderstorms already in parts of the southeast, which are moving north to northwest, with a lot of lightning and some torrential downpours in parts of Waterford, South Kilkenny, Wexford and coming into Carlow now.
Roughly 9 blockades have now ended at meat factories amid the ongoing beef price controversy. The de-escalation in tensions comes after last weekend's stakeholder agreement. 10 protests are now left at factory gates around the country. A spokesperson for farmers outside Dawn Ballyhaunis explains why they decided to stand down their protest overnight.
Independent farmers and all meats managers came to the conclusion that there would be no base price agreed on until all pickets have left gates all around the country. As a group, after the meeting, we've decided to suspend our picket to allow the factory a chance to come forward with their base price.
The Labour Party leader says Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil want to turn the next general election into a beauty contest. Speaking as the party's quarterly meeting of its Central Council today, Brendan Howland says Leo Varadkar and Micheál Martin are taking the electorate for granted.
The two of them together got barely half the votes in the last general election. But they want to turn the next general election into a beauty contest between Micheál Martin and Leo Varadkar. I think the people will reject that. I think people want to know what is going to be done, not who is going to lead a government.
Major health projects will be hit by a shortage of hospital consultants, according to the representative association. The Irish Hospital Consultants Association is holding its annual conference in Dublin today and has been told that pay and retention of staff will impact services such as the Children's Hospital and the National Maternity Strategy. Minister Simon Harris was due to give a keynote address but was pulled out due to a scheduling issue. That's all for now. More in an hour.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA, you can find our lowest car insurance price online, guaranteed.
Rain in the southwest will become more widespread over southern and western areas throughout the day. Top temperatures of 17 to 21 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
All right, you're very welcome back. We'll return to our Saturday panel in just a moment, but let's go over to the King Power Stadium because there has been a goal between Leicester and Spurs. Derek Clark.
Leicester City 1, Tottenham Hotspur 1, and it's Ricardo Pereira with the equalising goal for the Foxes. It was a great move, it has to be said. Harvey Barnes with the ball across goal into the path of the Portuguese, and he simply lashed the ball home to make it Leicester 1, Spurs 1.
All right, welcome back to our Saturday panel. We are talking about the Rugby World Cup, of course, and we're going to start looking ahead to Ireland against Scotland. Ciarán and Raghallaigh, the rugby writers in studio, alongside Michael Swift and Andy Dunne. Andy, I know you were in earlier in the week, but the team's been confirmed now. Jordan Larmour 15, Andrew Conway 14. The expectation midweek was that it'd be the other way around. Why do you think he's gone this way?
I'm not sure. He's
good answer.
I wouldn't have picked. I would have brought Addison to the World Cup,
but he's not there. Though.
He's not there. So I don't. I would have gone with Conway at fullback too, based on Larmour's previous performance at fullback against Italy, and I also would have done it because of who they're playing against personnel wise with Finn Russell. I would have thought they will absolutely target that back three. Now that can work in both ways because there's three pretty exciting top of the ground runners, but Russell, if we can start the music as I'm about to launch into my...
That's two mentions. I had the over-under was 84
mentions.
Rose
of Tralee music or something in the background, but what I do think he will... He doesn't do very obvious kicks, so he will... And he doesn't always do them by design, but there'll be grubbers, there'll be chips. What he'll do is I think he'll try and find grass with his kicks, and then the ball does the rest. And if you create havoc between a unit like Stockdale, Larmour and Conway that are not accustomed to playing together, then maybe they'll launch up a few bombs when there's doubt in their mind. That's what I think they might do. So whether you had Larmour at fullback or Conway at fullback, if they're going to play and try and find grass with their kicks and cause havoc, it doesn't really matter. It's about us being able to, I suppose, clean that up as close to the likes of Carney can do and has done in multiple times.
Because you do look at that Irish back three, and in many ways Irish supporters were pining for a back three like this, very exciting looking back three. But will Joe Schmidt set up that back three to play to their talents, or is he asking them to play the way he wants them to play, which may not suit
option B
abilities?
There's no way he'll give them carte blanche to express themselves, which is a shame. But there's not a chance, I would say. Those three will have to fall into exactly what he wants at all times.
Because I was wondering if almost his message to Jordan Larmour, I'm sure it'll be a lot more detailed, is I want you to go out and catch every ball that's put in top of you. I don't care what else you do. If you do that, I'm going to be happy with your game. Like, do you think it's almost that simple? That all he wants from Jordan Larmour is a no mistake game at full back?
I'm sure he's you'd like to think from a sports psychology point of view he'll deliver it better than that, but don't make any mistakes. What's the last word you heard?
Don't screw it up.
I think for Larmour the biggest challenge is going to be his back three management and his positioning, because you look at Rob Kearney, and I think there was an example against Wales in one of the pre-season games where you could just see from the camera from behind the goal line, and he just sensed what was the problem that was coming on the left-hand side and sprinted 50 metres and dotted the ball down for a 22. And it's that knowledge base that you can only get from repetition and that calming kind of blanket from the rest of the back three that's going to be lacking. And as you said, Finn Russell is a guy full of tricks, and he's not just going to be putting the bombs up. He's going to be, as you said, left foot, right foot grubbers, crossfield kicks, whatever it may be, and chip kicks.
Is he a good wet weather player?
Larmour?
Finn Russell.
I think he is, yeah. And I think the wet weather conditions will help us. As I said, the little grubber kicks and the chip kicks are just causing a bit of panic in the back three, and that's where I think Lama is going to be really tested, as well as the high balls as well. But obviously weather conditions is going to be a big factor. When we were told at the beginning of the week it was going to be a monsoon, then maybe it's not going to be as bad now. So I think Joe will be praying for it to be as dry as possible, whereas Scotland will be praying, doing rain dances in their hotel rooms, because they want to create as much havoc as they can in that first 20 minutes.
It's also the same pitch as the All Blacks played the Box today, and that got cut up quite a bit. So I think there'll be a lot to, depending on the weather overnight and exactly how that grass is stood up. It's interesting. I think it's the first time those three, or the second time maybe those three have played together as a back three.
Chicago against Italy. That was when Lama got the hat trick, but it was against Italy. Exactly.
Yeah, and it was in Chicago. It was really dry. It was a handy enough day. It's interesting to see Joe plump for such a trio in such a big game. It is almost against.
Well, he has no choice really, because of the injury situation, unless you play.
Well, you could have put Ringrose on the wing. You could put
Chris Farrell in the centre and put Ringrose on the ring. But again, you're going into pretty much uncharted territory of players who haven't played
true.
together.
It seems a little safer though, and I think it was in Japan. Conway played fullback as well and had a good game over there in 2017. He's not played a hell of a lot there, but I'd say he looks a bit more comfortable there. I think if you were to try and flip it to the optimistic side, you'd say how exciting it is to get Larmour with ball in hand and space in front of him. That's where he did all his damage early on when we saw him. It's such an important position, and the experience that we've lost with Rob, even though people, we always go up and down with Rob, don't we? We're like, he's great, oh, he's gone, he's 30-something, oh, he's gone, he's great again. To bring in Larmour and give him that, it seems a little risky even for Joe to do that. It's not quite what he does. So it would be interesting to see exactly what guidelines he's given him. It is normally quite limited anyhow, let's be honest.
Considering the Robbie Henshaw experiment against England, does that undermine Jordan Larmour at full-back straight away? That it's clear to everybody that Joe Schmidt did not want Jordan Larmour as his full-back. He was looking at every other possible option.
Well, potentially, but Larmour was very young and was younger again at that stage. Henshaw had a career initially at fullback. His entire early professional career was at fullback, and had performed in the Connacht side that won the Pro 12 very, very admirably, and his own peer group, such as his captain John Muldoon, who's over in Bristol now, probably still maintains that his best position is fullback.
He says it himself, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Players.
And I'd also say Ireland were pretty awful as collectively, and Henshaw was a fall guy in that England game, because we were so used to seeing a very functional back three unit. We were used to seeing a high performing, smooth looking Irish team that seemed to just completely implode against England, and Henshaw, there's an element to throwing the baby out with the bathwater. When we lost England, say we can never revisit the Henshaw experiment again. Now obviously we don't have the opportunity here because he's injured, but I don't think it would reflect badly on Larmour that Henshaw got tried there ahead of him, because Larmour's at a young age as well. Do
you think because of the conditions though, they might even bring someone back to help Larmour, especially if it is wet? The ball won't be as easy to pass out wide, so that there is room for manoeuvre to possibly bring Conway back or Stockdale to help support Larmour.
Well, I think a lot of other sides use a back rower in that case if they've got a big ball carrier, but in the case of say CJ Stander 2016 you might have brought back there, but not CJ Stander 2019, I think, because I don't think he'd make a huge amount of ground, but maybe the likes of Conan or someone, if he comes onto the field, could be an option there. You do need your 10, 12 and 13 to as a defender, as you're running back towards your back three when the ball's in the air, you've got to stop the attack flooding through, whether you elbow them in the neck accidentally or you stand on their feet or whatever way you can guarantee the ref's not looking at it, but you need to get in the way of the guys that are flooding through. I used to use the elbow in the neck. So
that would be basically an elbow to my waist.
It was actually an elbow in the belly button.
That'd be lifted. Is that what we call escorting now, is it?
Is that
escorting? Yes.
Escorting.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, it's something that can get overlooked. There's absolutely an art to getting in the way without getting penalised. Yeah, so they'll probably be primed to do that. Sexton and Aki and the boys, in the midfield, they've got to stop Scotland team flooding through with ease onto the back three, particularly the young or the inexperienced of that back three collectively. They've got to be protected.
Where are you on Gary Ringrose's form? And
well, I think his form has been quite poor in the tail end of last season, but I think it's the first period of his career where his form has dipped, and I think he's electric. I think he's a huge talent, and I'd like to look at it positively and say he's probably got something to prove again. So a Ringrose with something to prove again brings him back a year or two to where he just had to go out and play the way he did, a couple of seasons ago, where he was trying to show everyone I deserve to be a regular starting Irish player. He had a number of incredible individual skill moments, but I think he's been poor, which if we can flip it around and say I think it's quite a strong thing. Much like I would also include in that Conor Murray and Sexton, who at times were awful in the Six Nations, maybe the worst they've ever played for Ireland. Suddenly they want to go out and prove how why they're world class players and why Johnny was World Player of the Year. They've all got a little bit to prove based on poor form, which is actually not a bad place to be.
Ringrose in particular, what is it with his form, his dip in form? What's been going wrong? What's he been doing in the last 6 months that he wasn't doing a couple of years ago when you felt he was at his very best?
I'm going to speculate, but I think he's probably he would analyse every part of his game to the nth degree. There's an intensity to that you don't need at times, and there was an innocence and a freedom to his early play that you wouldn't. Maybe he did always analyse, but from what you hear in throwaway comments from his teammates, and he prepares better than anyone else. He's in the video room. Maybe he needs to get out of the video room and just have a breather and go for a pint, or just go back and
it's
play.
your recommendation for every Irish player.
Elbow them in the neck and go for a pint. I think it's interesting you'd say that, because I've heard a lot from players in the last few years, older guys, say if they're given one piece of advice to hand to these younger guys going to a World Cup, it's to enjoy it, to embrace it. We didn't maybe. Like Paulie's always telling this story about how he didn't enjoy it, or he didn't embrace it. Some of the other players who aren't even that old now are saying that they're starting to do it, and it seems to be like something you have to trick yourself into doing. And Gary, amongst the sports writers, he's infamous for saying the word learnings, which we don't think is actually a word. And it's even after a huge game, Grand Slam, big win against New Zealand or whatever, he'll doesn't seem too excited, not too excitable. And he's, I was privileged to be out there, still got some learnings to work on. It's like there's no present time enjoyment. It's not soak it up now. You're living your best life, as the Instagram people say.
Yeah.
Like, just enjoy it. And
allow a bit of emotion come in.
A bit of emotion, a bit of passion.
I remember famously seeing Johnny Wilkinson get interviewed 10 minutes after they won the World Cup in 2003, and they asked him what was next, and he was like Six Nations 2004. Like, it was so boring. You're like, please smile.
Jim Gavin were 3 months behind everybody else at this stage.
There you go.
Lads, Scotland want a dry day. They want to fling the ball around, and the risk of it going badly increases with bad weather. They can't do the up-to-jumper rugby Ireland can. Massive day for Jordan Larmy. Needs a better day than he had against Italy. Ireland to win by 10, says Neil and Bray. Like, that would have been the common consensus. That
it would have been. Swifty went way against it there. He flew in the face of it, but I'd agree more with Neil from Bray than Swifty on that one. I think Scotland would probably want a dry day. I do.
You look at likes of Hogg, obviously, at full back, and what he brings, and they are that kind of they thrive on chaos, and I just felt with the rain, potentially it opens up the opportunity for kind of more transitional attack play. But no, if it is a dry day, then you probably will see more ball in hand, and as we said, the Scots in transition can be as lethal as many other teams in the competition. So rain will dictate what will happen.
I think it's fascinating though. We're looking at a lot of teams coming into it, and we're just not sure where they are. And I mean, can any of us, even close to suggest what will happen tomorrow? Like Scotland's last competitive game, 31-0 down, and they come back, they lead 38-1 in Twickenham, which is just insane, and then they still don't win the game. And Ireland, I mean, I'm most concerned about seeing if they don't have a good start, because to me we seem to be a team, and I think the Scotland defeat in 2017 sums it up. If everything's not right for us if everything's not laid out correctly, if it doesn't go well,
it doesn't come on time.
I was there, and
better be on time.
one of the photographers told us it was about 8 minutes or something, and the coaches were saying it was 20 odd, but it was minute. And I think there was a game recently, Wales I think came to Dublin, and they delayed the bus to try to prepare for this. So I'm surprised Joe hasn't done the delay the bus to predict that stuff. But if everything doesn't go right for us, the body language drops off as well.
Yeah.
I have a piece in the Times tomorrow now. Spoke to an ex-All Black who says his biggest concern is watching Ireland, that mentally the body language goes if things aren't going perfect, and there's one or two players, I won't name them, that are worse than others, and that infiltrates through the squad then. And I think England...
Do you name them tomorrow?
They're in the papers tomorrow, yeah. I'm not going to tease you that much. But the England game was a shocker, and I think this crowd had the same feeling as the fans did, as the players did. It was like, we don't know what's happening and we don't know how to fix it. And then we had 3 games to prepare for Wales, and the same thing happened again. So I'm confused or concerned by the mental state of the squad.
Well, Sinead Kazan has an interesting article, similar-ish lines in the Irish Independent, saying how coach copes with imperfections should prove a fascinating element of Ireland's World Cup journey. That things are going to go wrong over a World Cup. These tournaments take on a bit of a life of their own. Somebody will get injured. It's happened already. You need to throw players in, and brings up a couple of different situations where Schmidt wasn't fully in control, including obviously. It's remarkable for Joe Schmidt that he's like that. I always think of the Kenny players will talk about Brian Cody. Brian Cody's attitude was the complete opposite, that it doesn't matter what happens.
Yeah.
We're going to go out and perform. If you don't sleep the night before the game, if you're so nervous, literally you get 20 minutes sleep, it doesn't matter.
Gives you a lot more leeway, doesn't it, as well?
We're just going to perform. If you run into somebody and you do end up spending half an hour chatting about the match and it gets in your head, forget about it. If your bus gets delayed, if your kid is sick, forget about it. Once it's 3:30, you go out and perform.
I read a book last year, and I can't remember his name. He coached the Chicago Bulls to 6 NBA titles, and he coached the Lakers.
Phil Jackson, yeah.
Phil Jackson, sorry, and it's called 11 Rings because obviously they won 11 championships. And the overriding theme throughout the entire book is that you can never be in complete control of these people or these situations, and there's so many variables. If you look at Fergie with his 27 years of unparalleled success with United, the one thing he wanted with all his sides was their ability to go out and express themselves and deal with I suppose unpredictability. You look at Brian Cody does that. You look at Warren Gatland's reaction to Rob Howley being sent home. Stephen Jones comes in. They said, well, is Stephen going to come in and fall under everything you've done? And he went, absolutely not. No, Stephen Jones got loads of great ideas, so we're going to use them and we're going to change up things like a week before the World Cup. That's the way to react. We get 8 minutes late in the bus and we're still harping on about it 2 years later. That's pathetic a little bit for grown adults at top level professional sport. You've got to deal with adversity, and Lancaster has a great phrase of being comfortable in chaos. So Sinead Kazan, I think, is spot on there in terms of dealing with imperfection is probably, and how our players are, if they get an arm around the shoulder with the inevitable imperfections they have, you would hope that's the case, that they can battle on
Comfortable
through.
in traffic would be a great t-shirt, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It's motivation.
The excitement about tomorrow is that we don't know that actually everything we've seen this year from Ireland could have been some form of shadow boxing, and Conor Murray and Johnny Sexton turn up and prove that they're still the best in the world in their positions. And even watching James Ryan and Tyke Furlong in the press conference yesterday, you're looking at them going, if Ireland are to achieve anything at the end of this World Cup, we need to be saying they're the best player in their position in the world right now. They've probably just fallen off that slightly over the course of the year, like all these Irish players. Do you look at them, and I know you've been around camp, they're peaking. Do you get the sense that everything we've seen this year has been for peaking for tomorrow and for this month?
I don't think it can be. I don't think it could have been. I don't think they could plan it that way at all. I mean, if you were to say that, you'd have wanted Levy starting tomorrow for starters. So to have so much heaped in that way doesn't seem logical to me. I can understand maybe that. I mean, I was in here, I think, on the Sunday after the England defeat, a week after the England defeat in, was that last month? August? The hammering, the really bad one. And, you know, people are saying maybe they've trained it so they will peak in the start of September. And I was like, I'm not sure if the science is exactly that accurate. I'd say they can get a lot closer to it. Obviously, that makes complete sense. But, like, you've talked about the All Blacks being perfectly fit come the World Cup final. It's not their fitness that's the biggest difference. It's up here. And I think what we've seen with Ireland in the last 18 months, and not just from Ireland but from other teams, is in rugby especially, how quickly that can change. I mean, we've got England came to Ireland in 2017 off the back of 18 wins, and we turned them over. We turned New Zealand over in Chicago. Later that year, South Africa came to Dublin and lost 38-3. And like a year later, they were struggling against England. And now look what we're talking about. I mean, the way these teams can flip doesn't suggest talent or skill sets or structures to me. It suggests a mental thing, and I think that's always been the case at the very top level. And we can't mentally want to peak in October when you've had two massive destructive defeats in February and March, another one in August, and the doubts are there. The players who are outside the camp say there's doubts there, and I think everybody has a bit of concern, and we won't know till tomorrow. About 10:30.
Yeah, just on those concerns, and just from a forwards perspective, I think
even a player's perspective. I mean, I'm just
what's hugely, I think, important tomorrow, and a player who maybe has kind of gone under the radar recently is Ian Henderson, and he's now, I think, reaching his 50th cap tomorrow, and all of a sudden now he's with James Ryan. He's been now with Dev not been on the plane over, and having been Rory Best crux in the line out. All of a sudden Henderson now coming in, probably calling the line outs with James Ryan and obviously third jumper Peter O'Mahony. It's a massive game for him and a massive few weeks, because he really now needs to step up to the plate and being a 50 cap player. We've seen patches of what he can do for Ulster week in, week out, maybe a bit more patchier for Ireland. And I think now having that shoulder on his as being the main caller in the lineouts, and in an underperforming lineout that in recent games, I think it's going to be a huge test for him, for his character tomorrow, and it'll be interesting to see if they can start on a positive note on that.
Yeah, don't talk about him that much. I mean, see, even it's the Lions, like he went over there with such hype, had a great midweek in one of the games, thought he was going to get in. I think he was on the bench, was he?
It's all been about James Ryan in the last kind of 12 months, and stuff for Ian Henderson. I think he needs to, raise the bar.
And he is a great player. I mean, we have seen a lot of great stuff from him, and I mean, that's what we're saying. Like tomorrow, you could see the team click. It could be that they've shook off a lot of the negativity mentally. They've said, right, this is what we've been building for, this is what we've been waiting for, all that stuff. Okay, we were building up gradually, we weren't just focusing on it, but it's here, let's go out and show what we can do. Because I do think there's frailties in all of the better teams. All of those teams, none of them look unbeatable. South Africa could have won today, Australia could have been beaten. I don't think England, obviously they've lost and drew in the Six Nations. There is an opportunity there. It seems unlikely to me that they will click and shrug off all that and everything will go right. But, stranger things have happened.
How nervous do you think those key players that you were talking about in the line-out and Rory Best are going to be heading into that game tomorrow? Like, can you work on it in training and be fully confident that you're going to execute when it comes to the game? Like, it feels as though that first line-out we're going to read a huge amount into it.
Well, I think the first... If we nail our first three lineouts in the first 20 minutes, it just completely diffuses the situation. And it would probably prompt Scotland to be slightly less aggressive in their spoiling tactics in the lineout. But that's why it's so huge. I mean, the England game in Twickenham, you're asking, can you practice for it? I was watching the lead. It was a very hot day, 5 weeks ago in Twickenham, and the background of the two commentators, pitch side, Rory Best missed a couple of lineouts in a row, unopposed. And you can watch it back. It's okay. So if you practice for it, maybe he was practicing it that way as an elaborate ruse. But I don't think you can. Swifty is a much better man to answer this. Can you replicate
a non-jumping
it
second row? I can.
No, fake it till you make it.
No, I think it's all about spaces, and I think with the England game, England went into that game with only two real line-out operators, and the back row they are a running back row, and there were spaces in the front, and I think there was a couple of times just make it simple for Rory Best and throw to the front of the line-out, and that comes from a call from the middle of the line-out, and but that's the thing. It's all about repetition, and to become a main line-out caller takes time. And Henderson and Ryan, haven't got that at the moment. Henderson, has not been a line-out caller for most of his career, and it takes time. It takes a couple of years to really hone in those skills.
What I heard a month ago was that it was nailed on with Tony not in that Ian Henderson will be calling the line-outs, but the way they were talking this week was that James Ryan will be calling some of the line-outs, and then James Ryan in the press conference yesterday said, well, myself and Ian and Peter will be having a conversation ahead of every line-out.
He has been doing it for Leinster on and off.
Ryan.
Yeah, so he's not completely. But I mean, that's the thing. This thing about it takes a lot of time.
It takes time to get and exactly, and that relationship with the hooker, and obviously then he's talking about hookers. You've got Scanlon on the bench ahead of Cronin, and I think that's also just as a bit of a support network for the second rows. Sean Cronin, for all his attacking prowess, can sometimes be fallible on the line-out throws, and I think that's the reason why they picked.
Scannell is a steady the ship option.
Yeah.
Would you, if Rory Best missed his first 4 throws, would you hook off your captain after 25 minutes? Do you think it would happen?
Well, Rory Best has been gradually coming off earlier and earlier, I think, in the last 18 months as captain. So, I think Joe's not scared to make the hard calls and absolutely, but let's hope it doesn't come to that.
Absolutely, you don't want to see it.
I think they say Niall is the best thrower, though, like the most accurate, consistent thrower, and that's probably what cost Sean quite a bit as well when he has gotten his few infrequent chances. Is the throwing. But I mean, we spoke to Leo during the week, and he said that Toner's back training fully now. He had a bit of a niggle when he came back from the camp. Didn't say much more than that. I still don't know any good reason apart from fitness that Toner's left out. Can you make any sense of it?
It was a shock decision for myself. I know Joe talks about he loves a tight head lock scrummaging down, and that's one of the main reasons. But I don't think that's a good enough reason to bring Klein into the squad ahead of Toner for such a pivotal tournament.
There's no way there's such a significant gap in what Klein brings extra as a tight head scrummaging lock versus what Dev brings.
It is a tougher role on the right, and I did it right. I did tight and loose head throughout my career, and just kind of mixing and matching. And it does take more toll on your legs and fatigue. And obviously having
a tight head
as a tight head scrummaging lock. But I didn't think it warranted enough
to rip up everything. Like this is the guy who's been picked more than any other player.
Yeah.
Over a whole cycle.
Such an uncharacteristically Joe Schmidt decision.
Yeah. And the thing with David, and even like defending it, if everyone does their roles as they should do, a proper lift, proper throw, you've still got that window of error with picking Dev, which is of the height of him. You can drop it a foot lower, and you still know he's going to catch. No one's going to get near him because he's got the height advantage. But look, it was a decision made, and it might be a masterstroke. Who's to know? Like Joe over the years has always proved the doubters wrong, and has always come up with these master plans. And maybe in 5-6 weeks' time, we'll be sitting there going, "Well, what a masterstroke it was to bring John Klein."
Maybe Jean is a great bus driver.
Really good with directions.
Get us there early for the final.
Head is in the clouds. Our rugby coverage is brought to you by Vodafone. Team of us, everyone in. A few texts coming in at 53106. We play a one-dimensional, risk-averse, structured rugby that will be found out against the Boxer New Zealand, assuming we get past tomorrow. I don't know how you managed to send a text under the table while they're actually in it the whole time. It's one of your disciples right there.
Yes. I mean, the last 2 years we played that way to win a Grand Slam, and we did, and particularly people remember back to a couple of brilliant moments in the England game, such as the try off the line out where Ty Furlong does the pirouette. The 80-90% of our play was exactly how that texter has described, but it was very successful because we were winning collisions, and it was new for us to be playing that way and holding possession and winning collisions and beating teams. The issue, I think, arose as soon as we beat the All Blacks to finish 2018 as a Grand Slam champion, touring Australia, winning a series and beating the All Blacks. Everyone stood up and took notice, analysed us to the hilt, and we never changed. So again, you would also say, when do you change? If you've had a year like that, and we had a disastrous half hour against England in the Aviva, you're not going to turn around and say abort plan. Like, the whole previous 12 months was highly successful playing that way. It's just we stuck with it. By the time we played against Wales in Cardiff, it was very, very abundantly clear it wasn't the way we needed to continue. But
here we are.
Here we is.
The big thing to look out for is for Ireland not to be scared of a lead. The second Welsh game was the first time we looked comfortable in front. Scotland, our 2023 team, just looking for a green scalp. They don't fancy a quarter against the All Blacks or the Springboks. Tomorrow's beyond huge for our mentality, says Neil, still in Bray.
That would be
scared of a lead.
That would be a worry in terms of Ireland in recent couple of years have not been great at chasing games. They obviously, it's a very much possession and kind of grind teams down to make mistakes. Once they're asked to start chasing a game, sometimes that goes out of character of what Joe likes in this team setup. So you're sure that Scotland for that first 20 minutes will be targeting breakdown, line out, Lama, to try and see if they can build a lead. Because as I said, I don't think Ireland are as strong.
They did in 2017, wasn't it?
2017.
They went at them.
Yeah,
got into them. That was probably an early indication of how to do it against Ireland. Obviously, you sort the traffic out first. Then you get into the line out. They tricked them a couple of times. Remember, they caught them out there. So I mean, even that the pressure that they will have seen, and everybody's going to be talking about that line out. I mean, it's not just Rory who's going to be worrying about it. They're going to be going, yeah, there's an opportunity here.
Yeah, that Scottish team might be approaching that first 20 minutes as a game in itself. If we can win that first 20 and get a head start, then the questions might be started asking about the Irish attack.
What are you predicting, Ciarán?
Don't do that. I ask those questions. I'm not.
Now you're on
daft enough to do that. I'd say they'll win it. To be honest, it's a coin toss because I've no idea what the real Ireland is now. 2018's Ireland is just, or 2019's Ireland is impossible to define. So I'd have to just go on pure talent of what is there deep down. If it's bad weather, I think we'll have enough. So I'd say like a 21-16 kind of win.
There's a lot of question marks, as you said, and we've named a load of players who haven't peaked. If they peak, then I think Ireland win by 10. But I think it's going to be closer than that, and I think it's going to be a 5-point decider. So
21-16.
21-16. There we go. We'll go with that.
Are we unanimous on 21-16, Andy?
I could see us winning. I can see us winning through a bit of blunt force trauma and through 4 or 5 of the world class players we have stepping up. Slightly better than, I don't think Scotland have 4 or 5 absolutely world class players. If we take Furlong, Healy, Ryan and Henderson, Murray and Sexton, front 5 and your 9 and 10, or 4 of your front 5 and your 9 and 10 having standout games, and the old, as I said, blunt force trauma, I think we could win by 8 or 9 maybe.
All right,
I'll up it by 3.
Good stuff, lads. Andy, you're back in with us again tomorrow to reflect. We'll play this back to you and see just how right you were. Andy Dunne, Michael Swift, Ciarán Raghallaigh, thanks a lot for joining us in studio for our Saturday panel. Before we go to ads, let's go to the King Power Stadium because there was no shortage of drama in the second half between Leicester and Spurs. Derek Clark.
Full time, Leicester City 2, Tottenham 1. The hosts battle back to take all 3 points in an engrossing game here. Harry Kane had fired Spurs ahead on 29 minutes when he somehow managed to get his shot away despite falling to the ground. Ricardo equalised for the Foxes on 69 minutes before James Maddison popped up with the winner on 85 minutes when he unleashed a stunning right-footed strike into the bottom corner. VAR ruled out goals for both sides, whilst the Foxes held on for a famous victory. It finished Leicester 2, Spurs 1.
A huge win for Leicester, who are up to second in the Premier League table now, and Spurs' stuttering start to the season continues. We'll bring you the team news from the 3 o'clock games next.
Off the ball on News Talk. Next week on News Talk, we've got loads of e-scooters to give away. All you have to do is tune into News Talk Breakfast from 7 a.m. and The Hard Shoulder from 4 p.m. Listen out for the cue to text and you could win a Segway 9bot ES2 kick scooter and a Live All Smart helmet. All next